And I don't know if I was in my head, but like I was looking at those text messages like, oh, this. Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Scenes and Convos, where we talk about music production, audio engineering, and moments in between. If you are a musician, an aspiring artist, or even an average listener, you don't want to miss these conversations. So in this conversation, I'll be talking to guitar aficionado Dontavius Turner, also known as DT, good friend and brother. Let's jump into the conversation. Hey, what's up with you, man?
Nothing much, man. How's everything been going with you?
Everything is good. Oh, man, Happy New Year.
Nice, man. Happy New Year, man, to you and the fam.
Yes, sir. You have a boy, right?
Yeah, three boys.
That's amazing to have three boys, man. Like, are they all taking up music?
I feel like in some form of way for sure. I know the oldest two for sure. I feel like my oldest, he'll probably do some of everything, but of course he's gravitating the drums.
Right.
I feel like they're surprisingly, I feel like they're all gonna sing. That's gonna be something kind of new, or I guess it's different for me. But my wife's a singer, so I
Got it.
feel like they're gonna be probably a part of music some type of way for sure.
With that being said, because I think about this too with my kids. My daughter's 10, my son is 14 now. Oldest daughter, she's 22. She could care less about music, but the younger two are like sponges for music.
Mhm.
And the only thing I would say I take credit for is the fact that they were around me.
Hmm.
I didn't really want them to do that. You know what I'm saying? Not saying I didn't want them to, but more so I didn't want to push it on them.
Same, same.
And then like they hate it after, after so often. So like what has that been so far with you and your kids and your wife even?
Yeah. So I kind of literally had that same mindset, man. I didn't want to force music onto my kids like that. And of course there's always like that pressure of a young child prodigy coming up being just like the father or mother or whoever. And you and I both know kind of like sometimes when it comes to being around music or being in the music space or just the community, like we understand the ins and outs and sometimes the goods and bads. And of course, like, with kids coming up, you don't want them to experience a lot of the negativity that comes with it. Of course, we've been through it and we know how to migrate through it, but there's certain things and certain people that you meet, certain experiences that you have
Right.
that you just want to kind of, prevent that from happening to your child. So it's almost like you would have that of course you would want them to do that, but it was like you would have that protective mindset and at the same time, like, sometimes and we probably also, I'm pretty sure you probably also seen somebody have a child prodigy and then have that parent sometimes be overprotective.
Right.
So hey, you don't want to be that overprotective parent, but you also want to protect them from certain things. And it's like just I feel like just the not pressuring thing kind of helps like with that flowing and just kind of like see naturally where do your kid wants to go. If they naturally want to do it, then you can take the measures to kind of, lead and guide them into that space. I tell a lot of people, like, I think honestly, as far as music gear, stuff like that, I don't think I bought any of my kids anything. Like everything they have musically, everybody else is bought. So I was like, that's cool. But I was like, I'll just kind of wait. And like sometimes for me, actually, I would say for me waiting, I see the benefit in me not purchasing things right now. Because with them being so young, they still don't understand the value of things. So my oldest child, his first drum set, torn into pieces, like drum pieces all over the house, different. I was like, well, I'm kind of glad I didn't buy that because,
Right.
that's that expense coming out of your pocket. Right now, I see the bless a little bit of me not spending my money right now. So I was like, well, I'll just wait till they understand the value of a
Oh
few.
yeah.
And actually, I got a drum set right now that's just in the closet. And I was
Right.
like, well, hold on to it and wait till, he kind of understands what you should do. Not because, of course, drums is probably one of the most expensive instruments.
And
I,
absolutely.
I don't want to just go through and keep buying this, buying that, replacing that. So I was like, well, let me just hold on to it and just kind of wait till that time.
And then you have some of those orchestral
Yeah,
instruments. that are really expensive and not durable at all.
Yeah.
So this little bag behind me, this black by
Uh-huh.
controller. So my daughter was talking about she wanted to learn how to play the violin. She's a part of this I call it a music conservatory, Atlanta Music Project. And
Hmm.
she's singing in the choir now, but she's also want to take up an instrument. So she was like,
Oh,
I want to do the violin. I'm like, them things are expensive, and
yeah.
they do what they do. I was like, okay, let's try out let's try out an eBay or not eBay, but Amazon version. $30, $40. I'll do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Man, she tore that thing up the first day. And I was just like, see, what if I would have purchased and I granted like the tuning pegs and all of that type of stuff wasn't the greatest. And I expected it to be that way, but I just wanted to see how she would at least take care of it. I don't even know why that's back there. I should throw it in the trash. It's trash right now. So I saw a post the other day, like the year end roundup. You've put in a lot of work
But
last year.
yeah, it's been kind of crazy, and I've been trying to find time in between time, and even like I think some of the projects. I think I had another situation where I think I had another similar interview for working on a different project. I think this producer by the name of Isaiah Hill. But I think his project or the his artist project was like Malik Music or something like that.
Mhm.
And he did the similar thing. And I was like, man, honestly, I don't even remember recording this project because it's like, but his specific project, it's like I halfway remembered it, but I didn't know it was like for actual project. I thought it was, and I think it was kind of like one of those things that like you use your project more so kind of like as a library, but then also kind of pitch it to what he does sync licenses and stuff like that. So that's what but he ended up, like I said, turning, I guess, the project or the files I submitted to him into like some songs, getting some artists to sing over and basically, like I said, turn it into an album. So I was like, oh, that was pretty dope. Because I was like, I kind of, sometimes when people tell me that it's a record, my mindset may go into that and thinking about like the whole song that you said and maybe like playing the whole song. But for his project, I think I only just gave him like 4 bars or 8 bars, so kind of almost tracked it as a sample almost, or like a bunch of different samples, and just like kind of let him place different things around. So sometimes I don't always do that, but depending on like what a person asks for, I do kind of keep that in mind because some people may know what they want, and if they just say, "Hey, give me 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars," I'll probably just kind of maybe give you like 10 or however many different layers that I feel like that kind of coexist that you probably can be like basically use. But I think for your project,
I felt like it was that way though. Like with my song, it was now that you're saying that, it's like, yeah, that makes sense because the song is really like a 4 bar loop.
hmm
Um, and then of course you had the horn section that's doing this thing, but I knew it was missing something, and I think you were like the icing on the cake because everything else had been recorded, and so like, yeah, so go ahead and speak to that, man. Like when you got the files.
So when I first kind of heard it, I don't know if you ever heard of, I'm pretty sure you probably have, but I used to listen back like before I even moved up to Atlanta. I think I worked this factory job like 5 months, probably the worst 5 months of my life. But I still was kind of I still was like attached to music in some way. So like I had the graveyard shift to where I would work 5 in the morning to 3 p.m. and the nights I would work 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. So every night, sometimes, working at flip-flop shift, sometimes when I come home, I wouldn't really be sleepy. So I would stay up. And I used to listen to like almost like TV radio jazz.
Yeah.
And like the Watercolors channel. Like it's kind of like smooth jazz, but also kind of fusion between jazz fusion. It's jazz, but just like a different.
Yeah.
It's not like straight up, it's not old school, but just something
Yeah.
you could keep on almost all day and listen to it. And that's kind of like the vibe I kind of picked up from that song. I was like, man, you can literally have this song on repeat and tired. It's just one of those feeling type songs. So like for me, like listening to a lot of that style of music, it kind of brought me back to that time when I used to listen to that after work. And of course, you hear little guitar riffs, different things. And then so for me, my approach to the song is like just listening to it, seeing what's already there. And not try to oversaturate it with guitar, but like try to make guitar present. And then I didn't really treat it like a sample base to where I just, track 4 bars here, 4 bar here. Sometimes I'll do, and I think what I've heard that you guys probably used a lot was probably sometimes a lot of my field tracks.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll go through a song and I kind of almost always do this. I don't do this all the time, but sometimes I do this a lot of times with a lot of songs because when people say they want guitar, and I know like they may want my character and how I play, so sometimes I'll create like a feels track,
Mhm.
and it's just like any lick that I feel, play it. Whether you use it or not, I just play it. I'll play it in the space that I want it, and you can move it around whatever, but just the timing. If it's a space, I'll play something.
Yeah.
As the song goes by, I'll just play like just and theoretically, I don't necessarily think that I'm playing over a vocal part or I'm playing over whatever musical part. I just like, hey, this is just a track for guitar to whether you use it or not, it's a track that you can kind of almost plug and play. Or if not, you can mute it, take it out, or if you want it in a different space, you can use it whatever. But regardless, now granted, me playing that full track, I don't want you to use the whole thing, but I kind of want you to just kind
Yeah.
of like
Find the
ideas.
pocket.
It's like a bunch of ideas that just there and that's accessible.
So being able to play in different spaces or pockets is an art within itself, and sometimes it takes training, but I also think it takes a lot of listening, right? Also understanding where things are placed and how do I fit in as a musician, singer, so on and so forth. So let's check what's under the hood. I have everything right now in folders. I love the folder setup inside of Pro Tools now. So I go that route using a routing folder versus using a subgroup track or an aux input track. Now, I did keep some of my MIDI guitar just in certain places, but we won't get into that. Let's talk about what was given to me. And what I tend to do is when I go back and import everything in, even though the labeling is what was sent to me, this is still good. I still have like a certain labeling that I go to at all times, right? If it's a riff, I'm labeling it EG riff, electric guitar riff, in a sequential order. And he sent these riffs that are very cool. I'm gonna start with the top track. Two riff tracks where I push pretty much hard left, hard right. Right, that was kind of like the standard motif lick that happens throughout the sequence. Right, this next one. So this track complements guitar one, DT guitar one. I want you to listen to, there's a certain dirtiness on one of the tracks, but just kind of give it some color. So. Right, and then definitely how he's playing the note. Right, give it that human effect, human feel. See, we got the guitar chord. And then the whole band follows this lick that's in the first section of the song, or the A section. Right. So, you know, just hearing that with horns is really cool. Then, of course, the piano. Okay, so we talked about space, right? Just want you to hear without the guitar, hear everything without the guitar. He was probably the last musician that was brought in on this project. He understood exactly what to do. So just hear it without the guitar in the first part. Right. Although that sounds cool, it's just this extra thing that just this guitar is bringing to this project, and it's filling in these gaps, right? Not a whole lot of overplaying, but it's just filling in the gaps, adding texture as well. So. Notice I took out the one line, that one line that's happening in there, because again, you don't have to have everything playing at the same time all the time. To me, it was in the way, and it would have misrepresented the melody line that's happening. And last two things I want to note. One is there's a fill track that he talked about in the interview where he's just finding pockets to play in, the section where the piano takes a solo, but we're having like this conversation. Like that right there. Just something to put in, you know, in that space, right? Filling the space, but not being too aggressive. So yeah, so great session. I mean, great attention to detail. And again, like the fill track is something just to play what you feel, find the gaps, and then as a producer, I make the decision. In this case, whether I keep it or not. You would do the same thing if you're producing a song as well. One last thing I want to note, basically what I have on the signal chain, and very limited, like not a whole lot of anything. I know that there was some things I wanted in the low mid frequency range, but anything below where I have it, it just wasn't hitting like it should. So of course you roll that off. Nothing on the individual channels, just a little reverb being sent to the reverb channel. So yeah, normally when you record the tracks the way they should be recorded, there's not a lot of processing that needs to happen on the individual channels. This was amazing.
Like I think like from me doing that a lot and tracking a lot, I find that people kind of use that to kind of like, you know, still, I guess, be relatable and pull some character from my playing. Then it also sometimes, apart from me following the chords, or if it's like some distortion lines or whatever, that just kind of adds the value. And it just, if you don't want it to be guitar heavy, it's still something that you can use. I think I took that approach, and I, like I said, in the song, I kind of heard some of those feels in different spots, and the way it was mixed and added, it was pretty dope.
Yeah, like it was things I heard where I was playing, and it was almost like you just interrupted. It was very, very conversational,
Yeah.
dope, right? So, like to your point, and I think from a producer aspect, and this is probably some things that maybe some younger producers may not know, but we do this all the time. Like it, I got a track last week, a guitar where the line was so dope. It was like a really dope line, but what it did was it ran into the entrance of the background vocal. I was
Mm,
like, I want this. It's
yeah.
too long. So it was like, let maybe just nudge the back part of it up not two measures, but two beats. And it was perfect. It was just like, it wasn't in the way anymore. Okay, all the files are in now, but I still got to make it sound great, but it need to be cohesive.
To your point about like younger producers thinking about it, like I also kind of thought, well, a lot of times when I track now, I still kind of almost, even if I didn't produce the track, I kind of almost had that producer mindset of like, I always listen to what's happening. And if it's like a bass riff, keyboard riff, like, so, and sometimes people send me, sometimes if I send people tracks, I don't play over those lines, riffs or runs or whatever. Some people may say, "Hey, can you send me more guitar playing over this?" But I've already like to me, I've already kind of programmed and heard what's going on. So my thing, like it's just me and it might be just a personal thing. And I'm pretty sure you probably do this too. But it's like if you hear a lick, it's like it doesn't make sense for me to hear a bass lick and then me to play a guitar lick over the bass lick. You know, like I want that bass lick to be heard. So like I think of sections and I always try to find the spaces that no one's playing in. Or maybe like how you said, like I may hear the keyboard riff as soon as the keyboard riff stop, that's when I start or something like that. Something that just kind of makes sense because when you're doing, especially a lot of instrumental music, there's a lot going on that, people may hear or people may not hear. So my thing is like if I'm creating with somebody, I'm hearing what you're doing. And then my thing is always first is to try to play around with you. Unless if somebody just wants me to play,
Right.
play overplay or just play through it, I always try to like respect um what people are what's already there. And I learned like that kind of really quick. I learned how to kind of fine tune that a little bit more during the pandemic
Right.
because like when people you couldn't be around people and there was like a lot of recording, a lot of pre-recording going on during the pandemic. So like I kind of got a responsibility kind of shifted towards me to kind of do a lot of pre-recorded tracks. And there were probably maybe a couple Sundays where I might have been on four programs at the same time. And and granted, I also personally like went to different places, but what I did, granted, like I'm on four different programs, but I don't sound like I'm overplaying. I sound like I fit in all of these four different situations. And like how I did that is like listening to who's playing on this particular recording. Now, are they overplaying? Are they playing aggressive? Like what approach should I take? And then I just maybe I adjusted to them. Then like the second, it could have been laid back.
Mhm.
So that means like I'm not really overplaying on this track. I'm kind of thinking about spaces, but I'm also still playing, having guitar present, but also creating that space. Then like the third, going and so on and so forth. It's like learning how to play with this group of people and learning how to play with this group of people. And then like it was just like a whole combination. I was kind of blessed to still be working during that time frame. But that kind of really fine-tuned my ears and really listening to what's going on in tracks and what people are actually doing. Cause like, with pre-recorded things, sometimes some of the stuff felt good, and some of the stuff didn't.
Right.
So what I wanted to always try to make sure is if I'm playing something, like you feel the music, and I try to, implement in that. And sometimes, feel is a hard thing to teach. It ain't really a thing you can just say, "Hey, do this," and it work. Like
Right.
it takes time and it takes years of listening to musics and different eras and trying to capture that. And my thing is that I didn't want everything to feel the same. So like, despite the fact I was on four different programs, you could listen to probably all four of those different programs, and like guitar didn't feel the same. Like I played for the setting. Like if it was super churchy, I played super churchy. If it was CCM, I played CCM. If it was, in the middle, I just tried to make that adjustment. And I just always initially, when it comes to tracking, I take that approach of like, what's happening here? And I try to, apply it. And like application might be the hardest thing to sometimes explain to certain people, but like of course over time you understand what to do. And I just had like a lot of trial and error, but thankfully, like I said, during the pandemic, that really helped me kind of open my ears and be able to kind of find the sweet spots. And then like I said, now every time I listen to tracks, I listen for space. I don't listen to like what everybody's doing sometimes. I listen for the space. But I listen for the space first to see, well, can I do this? Can I not do that? Or if it's an 8 bar space, well, I kind of, dumb down my licks to where it's not a 16 bar lick, it's an 8 bar lick, or maybe something shorter, or whatever the case may be. So like sometimes I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Like people don't understand how about like playing space is very important as a musician. Because when you learn how to play space, you're basically creating music like with guitar, bass, and understanding, that you don't always have to, dig in all the time. Like sometimes if you just playing bop bop bop, bop 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 might go on for 8 bars, but that may be essential for somebody else to kind of come in and layer something on top. And
With that
that,
analogy, if that bop bop bop's not there,
yeah,
the average listener is like, wait a minute, something, what changed?
yeah.
Sometimes it's a drop, man. I'll never forget it, and you probably forgot, probably don't remember. But I was working on a project maybe like almost, probably almost 10 years ago now. Still living in Indiana. Our mutual friend, Sarad, I was like, bro, I need a guitar player for this. He was like, I know somebody, man. I'm gonna give you his number. And all we had was text message
Mm.
conversation. At the time, I was like, okay, man, like you mentioned, you talked about some people like, I need, you know, I need some guitar on this. And he's, I need some more guitar.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't get that far because it was like the questions you were asking me was like questions of at the time I felt like you were being super duper rigid. I was like, this dude's a maniac. Like, I'm not even gonna work with him. But because it felt, I was just like, man. And but you was asking. I don't even know if I still have the text message. That was a long time ago. But I still remember because that was like my first. And then when I saw you was basically working at the same church, and I'm like, that's DT right there. Okay, that was like not the right experience. I grew from that. I've been in the space and place of a lot of times with producing people, and your brain is like overloaded with all these different ideas, concepts, elements of production. The lead singer, the cadence of the lead singer, the songwriting of the song, all of these different pieces that play into the production. Like, are we doing acoustic? Are we doing electric? Like, is he playing a Fender? Is he playing like what type of? I'm like all of that stuff matters to me now. And so it's like when I approach asking a DT or some of the great musicians, like in my Rolodex, it's like I try my best now not to put them in a situation where like here. Or if I do that, it's gonna be like here, and you like say less. Cause
Mm.
it's produced in such a way where you really ain't got no questions. You're just like, okay, then I hear what needs to happen. But man, like while that was one of those moments of, and I don't know if I was in my head, but like I was looking at those text messages like, oh, this nigga, like, like, oh, who he think he is? Like,
Yeah.
it was perfect, man. I don't know. Did you remember that? No.
Man, now that you said, Now, I probably don't know exactly what I said, but I know sometimes, like with me asking questions, probably the way I ask them might not be the best. But my thing is also, well, just with music or just in person in general,
Right.
I'm a communicator.
Right.
So if and it'll probably it ties more so into your point that you probably figured out over the course of years. Like when it comes to production, when you don't have, and not to say that you need the answers to all your questions when it comes to recording, but when you don't have the answers or like a guide, and not to say I'm not sure exactly if I had a guide or whatever you sent me. I just know like if I didn't have it, I probably asked for it.
Mm.
And like for me just asking for this or maybe asking for that, it's not, it may seem like, oh, he's this way, he's that way. But my thing is like with me being a professionalist or a professional person, I've been playing I've been playing for a long time, a lot longer than what people think. Like we're rolling up on like 18 years, almost 20. So like when I first moved to Atlanta, most people they would kind of feel like they got to coach this, coach that, and I was like, no, it's cool. I just need the right roadmap. So sometimes I would just ask. I was like, yo, what do you need specifically, and try to like really kind of dive in because like that's kind of how I grew up. Like I
Right.
grew up cats that were telling me, hey, play this chord, not that chord, change this, not that. And at the time, I didn't understand it. But the more I started, doing music, I start understanding, okay, these chords got to match, or this has to match. So sometimes this question that I may be asking is valid in order to, make everything come together. And like sometimes I just know initially, I know I probably rubbed some people the wrong way just because they may have sent me something and probably just didn't have a roadmap. And so I was like, I may ask, like, so what do you want? Do you want this? Do you want that? And sometimes people may just become frustrated just from that conversation alone. And I don't mean like any harm or
No.
ill will about it. It's just more so clarification. So it'll keep the producer or the artist from asking questions on the back end
Right.
or come back and be like, oh, do this, do that. Like if I can do it one time and send you what you need, it saves you time, it saves me time, and then you can get your process or the production piece moving quicker. Because I've also been in that predicament where I had to call people and I wasn't really clear on, the guide, but I was just like, hey, just put face to this. And then once they sent me something back, and I was like, I probably should have clarified this. So like sometimes I may, depending on who it is, I may make that call and be like, can you do this? Can you do that? But to your point, I try to like now think of it differently. Like make sure if I'm asking somebody for something, just make sure I got this X, Y, Z laid out for them, and like so they know like kind of a little guide map, so it makes it easy for them. So whenever they send me something back, I don't have to keep going back and forth because as you know, going back and forth like that could take
Already
some
gotten frustrated with the song by then, man. I'm
yeah
just
that could take some time.
like, throw it
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
And everybody's not that quick on communication as well. That's another factor that kind of plays into it as well. And like I said, I think I remember conversing with you about it, but I don't know what I said. I don't but
Honestly, it wasn't even harsh or anything like that. I think I'd never run into anybody that had those type questions
hmm
without even listening to the music.
yeah,
I don't even think I sent you the music yet. And so it was just kind of like, what's up with this dude, man? Like, and
yeah.
I, not even like I know people. I'm like, I know some folks that can get this done, man. But like, it wasn't even. I wasn't processing it in the moment. Like,
hmm
he's asking some valid questions that I don't have the answer to right now, and that I should, right? Um, but I'm telling you, I think from that conversation, and honestly, working in a commercial studio, like as a head engineer, which I also had to be the producer, it quickly got me there. Because I'm like, you're working on this project, you're working on this project, and everything needs to have a solid foundation before, like, so my demos, I like try to kick them out like it's the actual song.
hmm
So There would be no question about when this breaks happen or this offbeat hit happens, like when you hear it, that's what it is. So it's like a lot of it goes without saying, man. But there's a colloquial or whatever that people would say they're like the devil in the details. But man, I think there's the beauty in the details.
Yeah.
You figure out what's there and what's not there, and then you're able to progress from it. So, but man, dude, this has been cool, bro.
Thanks for having me,
I hope you
man.
enjoyed this episode. Next week, I'll be talking to saxophonist, the amazing Amaryllis Sewin. So y'all do me a favor, hit the like, share, subscribe button, and also leave me a comment. If you have any questions or anything that can help improve this channel, please let me know. Until next time.